If you watch Miraculous, there's probably one thing that you guys hear all the time. Well, actually, there's probably a lot of stuff you hear constantly, but definitely one of the bigger ones is, this show has had no development, or more specifically, people will say the love square hasn't had any development, and I'm sorry, what? Have you guys even paid attention to anything that's happened in the show? Like, it may be really subtle, but it's definitely there. So since I've been hearing a lot of the no development stuff, I thought it would be fun to talk about it, especially since the reveal will most likely happen this season. It just kind of sounded fun to go over everything that's happened within the love square, and basically just like everything that got us here. However, I'm only going to be going over the development of ADRINETTE in this video because, I think there's just been so much development and there's so much to talk about that it kind of needs its own video, but also I feel like this video would be way too long if I went into detail about every ship in the love square, and there's just literally so much to talk about. So if you guys want me to do a video on each ship in the love square, I will definitely do that. So without further ado, let's get into the development of ADRINETTE. So starting off from the very beginning, Adrien seemed quite drawn to Marinette, even though she didn't really like him at first. He still tried to be his friend. He could have gone out of his way to be friends with anyone in the class, but he only ever really went out of his way to be friends with Marinette, which to me says that he's always felt something for her, although at the time he just thought those feelings were platonic. And that was actually kind of confirmed in Cat Blanc. In the very beginning of season 1, it genuinely seemed like they were just friends. In season 1, when they had awkward interactions like when Marinette was stuttering or being really clumsy, he seemed really uncomfortable because it was awkward. For example, at the end of 𝚑𝚊𝚟𝚎, when Adrien goes to ask Marinette about Cat Noir and she just,
"It was a dream. You're a dream. In your dreams."
And you could definitely tell how awkward he knew it was by his facial expression. Also in the bubbler, when Alia pushes Marinette to Adrien and she says hi, he looks very weirded out and then also very awkwardly says hey. In my opinion, season 1 was kind of the season of them just becoming better friends, and then all the other seasons was kind of more about the development. I don't know, there was definitely a lot of scenes in season 1 where you could just tell that he was in love with her. I'm not going to add all of these or talk about every single one of them because that would take way too much time, but as an overall kind of thing, they definitely were just friends, and he acted very awkward towards her a lot of the time. In season 2, I'd say their relationship and the way Adrien acted towards Marinette was a little similar to season 1, but season 2 is when I feel like Adrien started to show more interest in her. He started to actually fall for her. And when I say fall, I mean fall, because I'm a firm believer that he's been falling for her since the very beginning, but this is when he actually started to really fall for her. Like the whole ADRINETTE dancing thing, do I even need to say any more than that? It was honestly so romantic. Not to mention, Adrien was the one who initiated them getting even closer. He's the one that leaned into her and closed his eyes. They didn't have to do that in order to dance, but he did. Also, he was literally smiling the whole time. He just looked so comfortable. This is also the season where the look was really introduced. If you don't know what the look is, it's basically the way Adrien looks at Marinette, like that lovingly look. He also looks at basically everyone he loves like this. Like, he's looked at Natalie, the gorilla, his dad like this. So it's kind of like his I love you face, but for the most part, that face is specifically reserved for Marinette. Like, he usually just looks at Marinette like that. But anyway, Adrien did look at her like that in season 1, but I feel like there weren't very many occasions where he did look at her like that. There was a lot more in season 2. This is also the season where Adrien's flirty Cat Noir side started to come out around her. Like in 𝚑𝚅𝚘𝚘, he got really close to her and was being pretty flirty with her. He was also very touchy with her. He was always touching her shoulder, and if there was honestly an opportunity for him to touch her shoulder, he would. And sometimes he would end up leaving his hand on her shoulder for an excessive amount of time. First of all, you probably didn't even need to touch her shoulder in the first place, but second of all, you didn't really need to leave your hand there for that long. This season was also the season that we saw him being pretty protective over her. Like in Despair, when Chloe was blaming Marinette for the whole fire alarm thing, he was the first one to defend her. And also in Heroes Day, when the Akumas came in, he quickly grabbed her to get out of the way. Oh, and in Gorizilla, when he grabbed her and jumped into the train to get away. But even though there was all this cute stuff that happened, and we could see their relationship starting to develop, and Adrien's feelings for her starting to grow, when Marinette was being Marinette and stuttering and blabbing on about stuff, he still acted very awkward, but it was definitely a lot less intense than it was last season. He seemed a little bit more comfortable around it. So season 2 is definitely the season that he started to get used to it. And yet again with season 3, he started to fall even more in love with her. The lovingly looks got definitely more intense, and he tended to look at her with that lovingly look more often. And also, in season 3, those awkward situations between him and Marinette, where Marinette's just kind of being Marinette, how Marinette acts around Adrien, he seemed a little less awkward about it. In Star Train, when Alia switched seats with him, he seemed really happy to get to sit next to her. His face literally lit up. And when she fell asleep onto his shoulder, he laid his head on hers and fell asleep. And when they were sleeping, he looked really happy and extremely comfortable. In season 3, we got to see yet again just how protective Adrien is over Marinette, except this time I feel like he seemed to be a little bit more protective over her than he did in season 2. Like in Ladybug, he was the first person yet again to defend her, and then also went to go defend her again in the locker room, but obviously he got interrupted, and even made sure to talk to Lila and made her apologize to Marinette. And the thing that got me was that Adrien has always been really nice to Lila no matter what she did, but not when it comes to her hurting Marinette. That's the time that he actually got mad at her and really called her out for what she was doing and wasn't nice about it at all. To be honest, I don't think he's ever been that protective over anyone besides Ladybug. Not to mention at the end of season 3 when they were running out of the building, he was only holding hands with Marinette. And in the same episode when he found out that she had left, when they were with Andre, he looked really sad. So at this point, it didn't really seem like, I mean, there had been a lot of development, obviously, like I've been saying, but I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of it. But then we got season 4. And I know I keep saying this, but literally everything got more intense. The way he looked at her got turned up to like a 10. Like I didn't even think that he could look at her like he loved her more, but yet here we are. And his comfort level around her got a lot stronger. Not that he was like I said, it's not like he was ever uncomfortable around her, but in those awkward situations, sometimes it seemed like he was a little uncomfortable. I swear there wasn't even one scene that had Adrinette in it that didn't show just how much Adrien loved Marinette. He honestly acted completely different around her in season 4 than any of the other seasons. I feel like this is the season that he was the most like gentle with her. Like I said, when Marinette was stuttering and blabbing on, he didn't really seem awkward. He didn't make any of those awkward expressions that he used to, especially in season 1. He just once again looked like he loved her and didn't even make it awkward. Like it didn't even seem like he was fazed by any of it. I think I've mentioned this before in like one of my older videos, but I feel like it's not only because he loves her more now, but he's also just like used to it now. If anything, those scenes just made him fall for her more. Season 4 is definitely the season where he like fell for her. I know I said that for season 2, but like in that season he like fell for her, but this season he like fell for her. Also, icing on the cake, this was the first season that Adrien has gone a whole season without him saying that she's just a friend, which if that isn't enough proof of their development, I don't know what would be. Which at this point, I thought for sure that this was the most developed Adrinette would ever be, and I thought that there wasn't really going to be much more room for any more development. But then we got season 5. I mean, we've only gotten 2 episodes of season 5, one of them being the only episode so far that has Adrinette, but we still have already gotten so much in just that one episode. It's insane. It seems like this season he is the most comfortable with her, and he literally called her just to tell her thank you and tell her how much she means to him. And he tried to kiss her cheek 3 times, something that he's never even tried before, which I've said this a million times, but the cheek kiss was just a French greeting, but still, he's never tried to greet her in that way before. And like I said, there's only been 2 episodes that have come out, so this is only the start. It can only go up from here. He's finally starting to realize his feelings for her, which could honestly change everything between them in the best way. Now I know I've mainly just talked about Adrien, and that's because most of the development of Adrinette has been mainly Adrien's development of feelings towards Marinette. But when it comes to Adrinette, Marinette has had some of the development too, such as her being a lot more comfortable around Adrien. This mainly happened in season 4, and more so in Rish. She literally went a whole scene without stuttering or being clumsy, and she didn't even freak out when he grabbed her hand. Obviously, she's not quite comfortable around him, and probably won't be till closer to when the reveal happens, but this doesn't mean that she's still not getting a little bit more comfortable with Adrien with every scene. So, quick recap, we went from Adrien acting pretty awkward and uncomfortable around Marinette, always calling her just a friend, not really seeming that interested in her, to him being slightly more comfortable and less awkward and more in love with her / interested in her in every season, till we've gotten him to actually be fully in love with her and to a point where he's actually realizing his feelings. And if all of that doesn't scream development, I don't know what would.